Good morning, guys, and welcome to the Strengthening the Community podcast. Mike, it's good to see you again. This is really cool. I'm so glad to be doing this with you. And we just discovered right before we got on here that we share a love of Ted Lasso. And so I don't know that anybody can see really well, but you have some sort of Ted Lasso bobblehead behind you. There you go.
Right up there. And Ted Lasso, Funko Pop.
So belief is a really good motto for us to have in this podcast as well. So this is part 2 of our episode that started last month on disability and belonging. And last month, Mike, we watched some videos, and all of them talked about the idea that services, staff were helpful in their life, that they helped them do the things that they needed to get done so that they could live in the community and live the lives that they wanted to do. And we've been talking about the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so we were talking about it's great to have a law that just sort of makes sure that people aren't abused or hurt or left out in some way. But you can have a law, and that doesn't mean that people are really included. And so we were talking about how do we do that? How do we help people be included? And really the goal is, how do we help people belong in community? Because when everybody belongs in community, it not only lets people live their life and contribute to community, but the community is better off because of it. I don't know if there's anything that struck you from when you think back to it.
Yeah, I think reflecting on that, something that occurred to me both at that time and now as we're reflecting on it is how much those 4 individuals gave back to the community by being on this podcast and talking about their story and what community means to them, and really being an advocate for and really great example of how finding a sense of belonging can have a huge impact on the quality of your life and the quality of the people's lives around you. I'm very thankful to all 4 of them sharing their story, and I hope that they know, I hope they listened to the podcast, I hope they watched it, and have an idea of how much they've impacted people to reach out to those around them. I'm very thankful that they were here to share their story, and I'm happy for the conversation that we have going on today, very thankful to be a part of it.
Yeah. So today we have 2 guests, Angela and Bev, and maybe you guys just want to introduce yourself real quickly about who you are and what you're associated with, and then we will we'll get into our conversation today. So Bev, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I have a wonderful history with Access Services, so it's an honor to be reconnected. I'm Bev Weinberg. I'm the founder and executive director of Integrate for Good, and belonging is one of our favorite things to talk about. So we have leadership, empowerment programs that we run in-house at our community hub, but also at libraries and schools, within corporations. And we really focus on answering the question, what happens when the school bus doesn't come anymore? Yeah. So people with disabilities have services and support that they're entitled to with some of the laws that empower them while they're in school. But when they leave the school system, often belonging is a challenge. Leadership opportunities are a challenge. So we really focus on supporting people who we start around the age of 14 or 16, but most of the people we empower are the families that call us and say, the school bus has stopped coming, and my son or daughter is 18 or 21 or 24 or 35 or 40, and they've never had opportunities and they're home alone. Yeah. And we love to use research and evidence-based practice to help solve that challenge of now what? How do we have people have an exciting next path, that trajectory to what their exciting next chapter is once they leave school, because everyone deserves that.
Nice, great. Yes, you're bringing back some of the past there, Bev. We both you're dating us. We were both part of Access in an earlier chapter. I had more hair then, but it's good.
And I had less gray hair then.
I'm sure. So it's good to have you back. And then Angela, I stopped in at Barista Jake's coffee shop and had a really great cup of coffee and met both you and Jake. And so you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm Angela McFarland. I'm a mom before anything else. And I'm the founder and president of Jake's Baristas, which is the nonprofit arm of the Closet Collective, which is Vinyl Closet Records, which is my husband's record store, and Coffee Closet with Barista Jake, which my son runs. My son is a 24, almost 25-year-old man that lives with multiple disabilities. And really, our mission was born out of both love and necessity.
What I'd like to do for a minute is to watch a video together. It's a short clip with another guy that our roving reporter Bree interviewed out in the street in the community, and just he's describing his life. So we're just going to watch that. It's a short clip, and then we'll just reflect on that together. And then I'd love to dive in a little bit more about just how what you do creates space for belonging for not just the people that you're serving, but for the community as a whole. So let's just watch this clip together.
Hi, my name is David Dean, and I'm with Access Services.
It's so good to be with you. It's great to meet you. And I know everyone that gets to see this video today is going to love meeting you as well. So we'll jump in with some questions. The first one is, what are your favorite things or your one favorite thing to do in the community?
Well, that will be going volunteering at Meals on Wheels, going out in the community.
Mm-hmm.
That will be going to the senior center.
Ooh.
Going to the dollar store.
Yeah. Why is that a funny answer to you? What's so funny about that?
Because we all love the dollar store.
You do? Who doesn't love the dollar store? I love the dollar store too. I could spend hours in there personally.
Yes. I love the dollar store.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what do you do at Meals on Wheels?
Deliver meals to the elderly people who doesn't get around so much. So we deliver meals to them, and yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's a great way to give back to your community.
Yes, that's what I think.
Yeah.
We all should be that way.
We all should be that way.
Give back to our communities.
Absolutely. I think you're an inspiration to us all. That's great.
Yes.
Okay, you ready for number 2?
Yes.
Okay. What are you most proud of in your life?
Well, what I'm most proud of in my life is really succeeding in my job and stay focused on my job.
That's great.
Stay on task. Stay focused. Yep.
That's great. And what is your job?
Weiss's Markets. I do the shopping carts, and yeah.
That's excellent.
Yep.
That's great.
What did you guys think of what he said about his the two things that he does, the Meals on Wheels and then Weiss's Market, and then just living life as a dollar store consumer?
I love the dollar store too.
Yeah.
I picked up on the joy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He was very joyful. He's clearly feeling very fulfilled. He feels of service. And they're really the core values both of Jake's Baristas mission and Integrate for Good's mission. It's, again, to go back to that micro level, if our projects and our programs can just bring joy and a feeling of self-fulfillment to one person, Bev and I are doing something right. And it sounds like that young man has that. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing to me.
Yeah. And to add to that, when I started out, I thought I was addressing special needs, right? I grew up, working 25 years in school districts. I was, in special education, coaching for Special Olympics, everything was special. And what I realized was that belonging and the need to contribute, which is something that he really highlighted.
Yeah.
I contribute through work. I contribute through civic engagement, volunteerism. That's not a special need at all. That's a human need. It's something we all have inside of us where we want to be of value. We want to be recognized as someone who can contribute. I remember the idea that really sparked me creating Integrate for Good and leaving that nice, steady school-based work and going into the crazy train that's nonprofit stuff was I was sitting at an IEP meeting, which is the meeting that, families and students have with their school about, the supports that they need to be successful. And I got, as an occupational therapist, I got to sign my name as a provider of service, the final page of this document, which has been done millions and millions of times across our country. I got to sign my name as a provider. I provide therapy services.
Yeah.
And I was looking across the table at a 20-year-old gentleman, and it just dawned on me. I saw it as a real, almost like a civil rights issue. I said, when does he ever get to be a provider of service?
Yeah.
It was all about, you're going to have transportation. You're going to have all these services that are deeply needed. I'm not saying to take services away from anyone. We need our services. But in addition, I thought, how unfair is it that I get to be in that role of a provider and there's no clear path or mechanism for him to do that? I said, someone should be doing something about that.
And so you did. Yeah, so you did. Right. Nice.
I'm like, I guess that needs to be me. But I love that he was talking so proud, so joyful, like Anne said, that I have skills that are valued by my community.
Yeah.
And I have the power. It's a feeling of empowerment that I am able to contribute in that way and be proud, So yeah, in just that short clip, I think those really, really important themes were strong.
100%. He had a level of self-confidence about him.
Yes.
I saw a lot of Jake in that young man in that clip. Last week, 6 years ago, when he graduated high school, he didn't want to walk out on stage to get his diploma. He was petrified. He was a nervous wreck. He wouldn't make eye contact, have conversations with anybody outside of his family. That day, last Monday and Tuesday, he's walking up to young adults and introducing himself and talking about his business.
Yes.
You can't make that up. And I didn't do that. I didn't do anything to create that other than provide him with a space.
Yes.
To do that.
Yeah.
And that is something that can be done. Any family can do it. Anybody can do that. If you believe in somebody and encourage them. And that kind of goes back to the whole Ted Lasso thing, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're touching on this because I think at the tail end of part one, where we interviewed our guys, the first half of the episode, the thing that came to mind for me is exactly what you guys are touching on. Is so often we think of individuals that are receiving service and support as just recipients of that service and support, when in fact, so many times, and I can speak personally for the measurable impact that individuals I've supported have had on me and their contribution to the fulfillment of my life and the people around them. And I think it's so important when you talk about what you guys are mentioning is, like Angela said, you're just providing a space for someone who had an interest and a passion about a thing, and they wanted to share that with everybody around them. And hearing David talk about it, something I also know about David because I work in the same building that he's in many days, he usually gives out every Tuesday his Tuesday morning affirmations. And it's usually the highlight of my morning, usually in between emails and phone calls, and the contribution that this population, who most times is seen as receiving service, and kind of when we talk about strengthening communities, I think one of the things a lot of people think of is how can we help support a group of people who are recipients of service. And you'll hear time and time, it's the theme of all these interviews, the theme of conversations, is how do we put people in positions where they can demonstrate value, contribution, purpose, connection, because what that does for everyone is really measurable and not something that I think we spend a lot of time talking about, because we are, rightfully so, looking for how do we advocate for what's available. which is also necessary, like Bev mentioned. But how do we calculate the value and demonstrate what our folks are giving back to the community selflessly and without looking for what's in it for them? It's just, this is what I'm passionate about, and it feels so good to be part of this giving and receiving of service and support to my community. It's just awesome to see the theme.
I think one of the biggest takeaways that I have gotten over this last 5 years is success doesn't come necessarily just from like a dollar sign, right? It doesn't come from making people fit in. It comes from giving them the space to belong and to flourish in whatever form that is.
Yeah.
You know, we don't take ourselves very seriously. You know, we celebrate very small victories, like little things that can be done. But one of the vibes that we feel very proud to allow is whoever you are, whatever you're coming with, whatever your diagnosis, you're safe with us. And it's important to note that we encourage the neurotypical community to be a part of that, right?
Yeah.
So everything that we do is fully inclusive. A lot of times within the special needs community, and there is a need for that, for there to be just groups for the special needs community. I see the value in blending.
Yeah.
You know, people without a disability with those with a disability, because they can learn from each other. Disabled individuals are just like us. You might have to make a little bit of an accommodation. It's not the end of the world.
And that's how that understanding happens, I think. And here's a word that I learned when I was at Access Services. I'm going to shout out Jess Fenchel, who is a rock star. And one of the things she always talked about was getting proximate.
Yeah.
And I always attribute that to her. And it's that idea that for that understanding, which is a root of, a foundation needed for belonging, true belonging, the work, we create opportunities, Ange and I both, for people to get proximate to people that they might not otherwise encounter in their everyday life, in their work.
I like that word. Yeah. I like that word.
And that's where you see that vulnerability, that understanding, where when you get to sit next to someone and do a service project with them, share a cup of coffee, as simple as that, that's when you can't change anyone else's mind. No one can do that, but you can provide opportunities for people to change their own minds.
Yeah.
And that's what we really try to do. I love getting back to what Mike said, where we have a quote on our website. I almost took it down because I've used it from day one since I launched Integrate for Good, and I thought it was getting old. But I'm so glad I put it back there, because it's what people think about when they think about Integrate for Good, because it's so visual. It's a Maya Angelou quote. And she said, you can't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You have to be able to throw something back. And too often, people with disabilities do go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. They might be raised to see themselves that way, that I need support, I need help, I'm learned helplessness, that kind of thing. But how do we remove that extra glove so they can pitch, and other people, they see themselves that way and gain that confidence and joy that we saw in the video clip. They see that in themselves, but then the community sees it. You know, corporations will call us, we want to volunteer and help people with disabilities. And I have to turn it 180 and say, well, actually, we have people with disabilities that love to come into your corporation. And what do we need to do to remove that extra glove so that people see themselves and the rest of the community? That's where we see belonging, when we have mutual respect for the contributions of all people.
I want us to, this is just such good, solid stuff. And I want us to sort of continue the conversation around what does it mean when we create space for people to get proximate. But I'm an old man with a short attention span, so I got to say this thing before I forget it. And if we wind back to what David talked about, and we heard this last month also, Mike, is not only are people proud of what they're doing, they understand why they're doing it. And they understand the value that it has to the community. So when David was talking about Meals on Wheels, he didn't just say, I'm delivering meals to people and it seems like a good thing to do. What he was saying is these are people who can't get something to eat otherwise. He understands the value and the importance of that. And then he said, everybody should be like this. And so that circles back to me about the things that you both have used the word empathy a couple times. And Bev, if I pull back a thread that you were talking about, like we think of people as having special needs, and we use the word special as though it's different, and yet we're overlooking our own capacity to learn about empathy and kindness and positivity, the things that we've heard throughout all of the interviews that we've watched. There are lessons to be taught to the rest of us by people who are really, really good at those things. It's just that we overlook them because of some other thing that we filter their capacity through this other lens that we have.
I think belonging comes from like realizing similarities, celebrating differences, not discounting them. But going back to what Ange said, I think the basic foundation for belonging to happen is safety.
Yeah.
And people need to feel safe. You cannot experience belonging if you don't feel safe. I think, in my humble opinion, it's a prerequisite.
I agree, yeah.
And that's when we have groups at Integrate for Good. Every time we start a series, they make their own. We have the chart paper on the wall or on the screen or whatever they're doing. And the first rule, I say, you guys create the rules here. I create the first one. The first one is be yourself. I'm like, that is the rule I insist on. If you want to flop your arms, if you want to speak, if you want to walk around the room while class is in session, come as you are, but don't feel you need to mask. Don't need to feel like you have to hide part of your identity, because then you can't fully belong. And educating other people about why people might be doing behaviors that, or things that maybe they're not used to. And then when people understand it, they're like, oh, I tap my pen on the table. I kick my foot under my desk. I do a lot of things to stay alert too. And I think one of the best things we can do is have open, honest conversations where people aren't afraid to ask questions, because then people can belong and show up as who they are, knowing that people get them.
I've had a lot of people ask that question of, how does Jake like to be referred? And I said, as Barista Jake. I said, to the point that he introduces himself to people. And I said, your name is Jake. Your name is Jake McFarland.
You've given Jake opportunities. And we see this is when people thrive. Take off some of the bubble wrap, because we want to protect people who are vulnerable as parents and as people who care about them and as allies. We all want to do that. But when you just take off a couple layers of that bubble wrap and put people in situations where, as OTs, we call it like the just right challenge, where it pushes them a little bit, but not to the point where you shut down. There's like an art to that, which I think like you have down because of Jake, and giving him those opportunities. When I first walked in, he was like with his videos. I walked in the door, he didn't look at me, he didn't talk to me. And now when I walk, I'm like, is this the same guy? And I think it's because he's had this dignity of risk where he's been allowed to try things that challenge him. And admit when, hey, social battery's done. Like, let's do things that are within what is going to, empower him, and understanding, like, how does he successfully learn and engage and respect that. And seeing the change, and just like, it blows my mind, because I remember that day I first walked in and I'm like, oh, guess that's Jake over there. Like,
And now he sees your car pull up and greets you.
yeah.
We have a customer who's been with the record. We've had the record store for about 14 years, and we have a customer who's been there since day one. So he's seen Jacob go from this, 9-year-old, quiet, never just in his own world boy to who he is now. And Jacob knows people's cars. So this gentleman pulled up, Jake saw his car, made his coffee before the guy got out of the car, and greeted him at the door with it. The guy burst into tears.
And Jake created a sense of belonging for that guy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When we talk about that reciprocity.
Yes.
Like, and that guy felt like seen, like somebody paid attention to me and remembered what's important to me, like what I like in my coffee.
Yeah.
Like, that would make someone stop and pause or cry, because that's so important. And I think we've gotten a little bit away from that in this fast-paced digital world that a lot, that kind of distracts a lot of us.
So I want to hover there. I want to just hover there for a minute, because we've talked about the impact that this has had on the people who sort of find their way into inclusion. But we're just now landing on this other thing, which is, what's the profound impact on the rest of the community when people are given the opportunity. So you guys have both talked about what you do is you create space. You can't make some of these things happen. You couldn't plan them. They happen relationally, they happen organically. And what you really do is you create and hold space for proximity. I also love that word, Bev, and because we also say about proximity that proximity changes the narrative. So when people get with each other, then it changes how we understand the world a little bit and our place in it. And so this last little vignette of the gentleman being remembered for his order, being treated with empathy and kindness and positivity in their life. You are absolutely right. These are human things. So I want you guys to both sort of reflect on what it is you do that creates that space. So Angela, I know you have events at your space, where people come and do things, and then everybody can come. Well, who doesn't want a good record, a good event, and some coffee to go with it? And then Bev, you take people out to lead the other people in the community around things that are important. So you're creating spaces where you're sort of flipping you're flipping the script a little bit, where the people that we thought we were including are actually teaching the rest of the community something.
We have something called Barista Jake Kindness Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And that came about due to our partnership with Integrate for Good. So right after we've been doing this for about 4 out of our 5 years. And the first year, every Wednesday was really, intermittently was directly related to Integrate for Good. Bev and her team, and a lot of times just Bev, because we both really don't have a team. We're one women. Listen, we are one women dynamos. But
you are.
She brought the sleeping mat project to me. She brought the Kindness Rock project to me. And when she didn't have staffing to be able to do them, I said, okay, well, I want to keep this momentum, because what we found was we were getting, if it was during the summertime, we were getting parents bringing their kids in. We were getting other special needs families. We were getting retirees. We were getting teachers. And it was really all walks of life that were coming in and building these natural relationships. So we continued that on long after, Bev got so busy and was doing her thing, where we do a different service project every month for a different purpose and organization. So that's always very important. We do an all abilities open mic, and we get people that have a diagnosis, people that don't have a diagnosis, people that have never stood on stage, seasoned musicians, people that always wanted to. And it really is a beautiful thing to experience, because it's all walks of life. There's never eye rolling. There's never judgment. You are celebrated for having the strength to get on that stage.
It's like you just create a space, and then everybody comes in.
And community.
Yeah, and community. Right. That's there. See, there's so many T-shirts that are coming out of this conversation.
The So Much to Give Cafe in Skipback and the Inspiration Studio, they have a lot of buzz. They have a lot of workers. I'm the only job coach. I'll build your resume for you. I'll coach you on your interview skills. And if we can change that conversation, right? Interviews don't have to be suit and tie, formal, sitting at a panel interview. It doesn't have to be that way. And I'm speaking as a business owner and a former recruiter, where my job was to teach people how to properly be interviewed. We now need to work on teaching people how to properly interview others, because it is not cookie cutter.
And they leave good talent at the door if they want to interview everybody the same way, right? And that's where we say, like, where's the benefit to what I call it the generic, like, we call it the generic community. The generic
Yeah.
community is just everybody, everybody. So we always talk about, how do you prepare a person with a disability to fit in or to belong? But what's really important as well, even more so in my opinion, is how do we prepare other people to make sure they're not leaving talent on the sidelines? If you're a recruiter, if you're a company, if you want creative problem solvers, if you want dedicated, loyal employees, who want to change the culture of we say we don't come from it, Ange and I, either as this charity mindset. So it's that win-win. Don't do me any favors by hiring this person, right? You're going to do
Right.
yourself
You're
a
doing
favor.
yourself a favor. You're doing yourself. You need to stop acting like inclusion is the office plant.
The question that pops up to me is when we're talking about, because this is a valuable subject for this podcast, I think the theme is we're drawing this line between inclusion and how that leads to belonging, because they're not the same thing. Like, we can include without making people feel like they belong. So what that takes is what we're talking about now is kind of a change in the mindset of whether it's the person doing the interviewing or the member in the community who doesn't have a lot of contact with individuals that have a disability. So what advice do you guys have to give to folks who maybe they have a neighbor, a friend who has a son or a daughter, or an employer who has an applicant? What should they be doing to improve their capacity to understand and also recognize the value that this population brings to the table? What would be some advice or some key things? Because I think that's what we're trying to drive home here is how can we take that first step as someone who doesn't have a lot of direct contact to say, I need to get more proximate to this population, because of it provides both connection for them and benefit to me and value and connection. What would be the advice you guys would give that crew?
Yeah, I think, in terms of, say, a neighbor, starting with just kind of everyday life, one of the things that I hear from families, and I've heard it, working with kids with disabilities for 30 plus years, I'll date myself, the things that parents would talk to me the most about are things like this. My daughter doesn't have anyone to trick or treat with. My son isn't invited to the birthday parties for his regular education classroom because when that class list goes out, he only comes into that class for part of the day because he gets his educational needs met maybe in another classroom. He doesn't get invited to birthday parties. On the weekend, nobody's saying, do you want to kick a ball around? So I think that is just think about people that might not have the, because I hear some parents, oh my gosh, I have to buy another present. My kid's invited to 25 birthday parties every school year. Well, for the parent that the kid isn't invited to any, like that would be a dream. So I would say just think of the things that are going on. Sometimes it's just like thoughtfulness, being aware, hey, what's going on? And is like my kid's classmate that they talk about, like, let's put them on the birthday list. Let's make sure they get a Valentine. Let's, just those simple things to include people. And for corporations, of course, Ange is in HR, background, but I always challenge companies. Like people will say to me, we want to hire someone who's neurodiverse. Can you send us someone? I'm like, well, what's the job? Like, what are the requirements? But I'll get that I'll get the job description rather. And at the top, it says 4-year degree required, going back to what Ange said. And I challenge that. And I say, I get it. For some jobs, like I can't be an OT without like licensure and degrees. For my profession, it's required, but not for marketing, not for IT, not for a lot of other things. So I'll say, why is a 4-year degree required for this? Just curious. I'm not telling you how to write your job description. I don't work for your company. They'll say, well, that's just the way we always do things here, or that's the template. That's the template for all of our job descriptions. And I'm like, you can have that, but you're going to be leaving really good talent at your door because for some people, college hasn't been a possibility for them. It might not be something they can afford. It might not be something that was a fit for how they learn. So for companies, just thinking about maybe your next hire is a little bit of non-traditional background that you might not, so that way you're not leaving good talent, outside your organization. But I think it's just like taking time to think, and we always say a lot of the people hear accommodations and they're like, it's $1 million ramp and a bathroom renovation. We're like, most micro accommodations, we call them, are free, or they're just good for all people. Provide notes about a meeting after the meeting. Let people have an agenda before the meeting so they know what to prepare for. Little things like that are just good for business. So a lot of accommodations benefit everyone. So that's what we say. It doesn't have to be special. It doesn't have to be big and grandiose, but it's just like a layer of thoughtfulness that could be a game changer for somebody who feels excluded.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, it's a Ted Lasso quote where he's quoting Walt Whitman, but the be curious, not judgmental. I think it go a long way, is just being curious.
This is where the companies will say to me, and they're so afraid to say it, they want to know if they can fire someone with a disability. That's the biggest question. What if it doesn't work out? Right? If I take this chance on maybe someone, we haven't hired someone like this before, if it doesn't work out, and I'm like, you through HR protocol would document and do everything you would do for any employee. But yeah, of course you can fire people with disabilities if it, you have the job, you go through everything, you do the onboarding, you have all that. So, but people are afraid to ask. And this is the story that I'll end with. I just think it's so powerful. I worked for Cheltenham School District, and there was a bullying issue there. And the school wanted to clamp down on it right away, not tolerate it. So they had, an assembly about it. They had posters about it. They're like, if you're caught bullying, you are going to come in and you are going to meet with the principal and have lunch with the principal. And that was not a good thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. That was not a good thing in this situation. And then I will never forget, she's 9 years old, lives with cerebral palsy, communicates through an iPad, wheelchair user. And she said, through her iPad at 9 years old, she said, people now, because they're afraid of getting in trouble, they ignore me. And the ignoring hurts worse than the bullying ever did. And I'll never forget it. This 9-year-old, I'm like, wow, to say that through augmentative communication, she needed to get this out. She said, people are afraid to, so we don't want to create that in a corporate setting or in a school setting or in a community setting where it's not safe to ask questions and be curious, like you said, because that's where true understanding comes from and belonging. Someone cares enough about me to ask me how they can best support me or include me. So we don't want to get into that cancel culture where people are afraid to ask questions because then that creates exclusion.
Oh, I really hope people hear that. That's a great example of how I think there is an element of risk that comes with introducing yourself or speaking with someone where there may be certain challenges or uncertainty about what that communication may look like, or certain behaviors, especially in children, that they may not understand in one another. There is a certain level of risk, and building those, I think, flexing that muscle to take the risk to introduce yourself to someone and to have a conversation is huge. And when you're talking about employment specifically, something that comes to mind, what I've seen in a lot of these scenarios is, as an employer, you have a task that needs to be completed. And as an employee, you want to complete the task. So you have a common objective. There's something that you both want to achieve the same purpose. It just might take something a little, we can call it an accommodation, or we might just say, this is flexing a muscle, a supervisory muscle, to help someone complete a task that they're also motivated to achieve, and we want them to achieve in the most efficient way possible. And that comes with communication, understanding, support network.
And a good fit from the get-go. Like what we say is what doesn't work is tokenism, right? Look, we just hired someone with autism. Like, I'll get that too. People like, I just hired one of your people. I'm like, I don't have people. Like, I'm in a community with you. Right. They're not mine. I don't have people, but I get what people are saying. But it has to be the right fit. Like I remember a school reached out and they said, can you help us troubleshoot this? We have someone who's working in ShopRite and they're having some interesting behaviors, we'll call it. They're knocking things down. They're upset. It's not working out. And it was someone who has a lot of sensory defensiveness with different textures. Well, they had them like stocking the kiwis. Well, if you have sensory defensiveness, the kiwi is the last thing you want to touch. It's fuzzy. It's like, and I'm like, the kiwi's the kiwi's the problem.
But see, that's a very simple accommodation.
Right?
Gloves. Okay. If they have a tactile sensory issue, give them gloves, right? It's not expensive to make these accommodations. And that's the mindset. This is actually the topic of a talk I did at Clean Logic, with the Neurodiversity Employment Network. They hosted it. And we talked to other business leaders, about hiring the neurodivergent population or the disabled population, whatever it is. But from an employment, standpoint, visual supports and flexible training and lots of grace, because mistakes should not be deal breakers. They should just be part of your process, because trust me, I've worked with captains of industry who screwed something up. They weren't fired. They weren't told it's not working out.
They probably have a hard time with the kiwis too.
Right. Exactly. Guess what? I couldn't do it. So I think a lot of it really just comes down to, what's the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And communication, asking the question of somebody, if somebody's in a civic organization with you, if somebody is a new hire at a company, if somebody's at the library, strike up a conversation with them. Is there a way that I can make this more comfortable for you? They're going to be appreciative that they're being seen for who they are and heard.
Just like what we're talking about, to bring it back kind of to whether you're a business owner, a parent, or like Access Services, like a service provider, what we're trying to help people do is sometimes be the advocate, and other times help people advocate for themselves, to communicate, this is some of the reason behind, these are the motivators behind some of my behavior, this is the motivator behind the way I communicate or the way I do things. So what we've seen also in the theme of the 5 guys that we interviewed over the last 2 episodes is that all 5 of those guys are connected to service provider and family and business ownership or supervisors that provide a service that acts as the tool for them to find connection, inclusion, and belonging. So it's not that we're bringing that to them, but we're acting as the tool that allows them to find it. And I think that's a super cool connection, because it doesn't have to be parent, business owner, service provider. It can be friend, neighbor, cousin, uncle, anybody out there who just wants to get to know somebody and help them feel more connected with a sense of belonging.
So this was super helpful, and I think as Mike has said, we've gotten to sort of connect all the dots between sort of including people, supporting people, providing services to people, but that the real end goal is to have everybody have a sense of belonging, and that our community is actually stronger. We are better people collectively when everybody belongs, which I think is the biggest thing that we're really trying to emphasize here. How can people follow you? Where do they look to find out where I can do a Kindness Wednesday or get a good cup of coffee and a chocolate chip and learn chess? Like whatever those things are. How do we find you out there in the community?
Well, Mark and I might want to do a duet on the open mic. I don't know. I was thinking that when you were...
I'm going to bring my harmonica, which I don't know how to play.
Doesn't matter. Guess what? You're included. We welcome you. If you have the moxie and the pluck to get up there and do it, we're going to clap for you. So you can find us. Our website is about to be under construction, but right now it's jakesbaristas.com. It's not really updated, but you get a lot of our current content on Instagram at Barista Jake 2020 and Facebook at Barista Jake. The best way for me, though, I think for people to really understand who we are is to go onto our YouTube page, which I believe it's Barista Jake Inclusion Revolution.
And if you're local and you want to stop in to meet the man, the myth, the legend, and a cup of coffee, where do I go? What's the address?
So we are located inside of Vinyl Closet Records, which is 2117 West Main Street in West Norton, Pennsylvania. We're right on Ridge Pike. We're across the street from the Jeffersonville Golf Club. We're at the end of a strip mall. When you walk in, you get the vibe of a cool record store. We have a sports card store that is one of our tenants in the back that is phenomenal and is also dedicated to inclusive support and hiring. And then you have our coffee shop.
All right. If you go on a Saturday, you'll see us there. And if you go on open mic night, you're going to see Mike and I and a lousy harmonica duo or something. Bev, how do we find you?
Yeah, so integrateforgood.org. And we're not always at our location, but our community hub is 3238 West Germantown Pike, and that's in Worcester Township. And the best way to find out about our programs, our calendar, what's going on, it's all on the website, integrateforgood.org. We have a great event coming up October 23rd that's being emceed by Tracy Davidson of NBC 10. So lots of opportunities to be part of that event, lots of opportunities to be part of the courses we offer, our leadership incubator, our empowerment lab, our inclusive volunteering. We're not as strong on social media, but you can find us at Integrate for Good, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Thank you guys so much. This was an awesome conversation. Thank you guys for just being part of today's conversation. Next month, Mike, we're going to be talking about substance use and how the opposite of addiction is connection. As part of that continuing theme of how do we live with each other in community and do that well. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
Can't wait.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope that you enjoyed hearing from people who are strengthening our communities every day. Search for and follow us on your preferred streaming platform to hear future episodes.